The broadcast of Good Morning America started like any other, with cheerful music and a polished introduction from the hosts. However, the atmosphere shifted quickly when Mel Owens, known for his passionate takes and strong personality, joined the set, sitting across from Sam Champion, who was equally known for his sharp opinions. Viewers could already sense a storm brewing beneath the surface as the two prepared to discuss a highly sensitive topic that had been trending for weeks. The producers had anticipated a lively debate, but nobody expected what would follow. Owens began speaking in his usual energetic style, emphasizing his points with wide gestures and firm language. Champion, never one to hold back, interrupted him within minutes, challenging the very foundation of Owens' arguments. The tension became visible on their faces, and though they both maintained smiles at first, their eyes revealed that patience was already wearing thin. As the conversation progressed, the disagreement deepened. Owens laid out a series of claims that he insisted were backed by research, leaning forward in his chair and pointing toward the cameras for emphasis. Champion immediately countered, calling those claims exaggerated and misleading. The back and forth quickly transformed into overlapping voices, making it difficult for viewers to catch every word. The studio audience gasped as the tone escalated beyond typical morning show debates. Sam Champion raised his voice, accusing Owens of intentionally bending facts for dramatic effect. Owens snapped back, insisting that he was presenting the truth that others were too afraid to admit. The anchors tried to calm the situation, but their attempts were drowned out by the intensity between the two men. It was clear neither wanted to back down, and each interruption added more fuel to the fire. Viewers watching live began posting on social media about the chaos unfolding on screen. Owens, visibly frustrated, leaned back in his chair and threw his hands into the air. He accused Champion of constantly derailing conversations with personal attacks instead of addressing the substance of the issue. Champion, equally animated, pointed a finger across the table and fired back that Owens was grandstanding for attention. The clash of egos was no longer subtle. It had become the central focus of the broadcast, overshadowing the original topic entirely. What shocked the audience most was Owens' sudden outburst. Slamming his hand on the table, he declared that he was tired of being silenced by gatekeepers. The sound echoed across the set, leaving an awkward silence for a moment as everyone processed what had just happened. Champion smirked and shook his head, which only seemed to enrage Owens further. The atmosphere had shifted from heated debate to outright confrontation, something rarely seen on live national television. Champion seized the pause to deliver his sharpest critique yet, accusing Owens of promoting division rather than solutions. He insisted that Owens' approach was harmful to public discourse and dangerous for the younger audience watching. Owens immediately cut in, his voice rising above Champion's, calling the accusation ridiculous and insulting. The back and forth had transformed from a professional disagreement into a personal battle, with both men digging deeper into their stances. The anchors sitting nearby looked increasingly uncomfortable. One attempted to redirect the conversation back to a calmer tone, but Owens was unwilling to let the accusation stand. He launched into a passionate monologue, his voice cracking with intensity as he explained why he felt he had been unfairly portrayed in the media. Champion rolled his eyes openly, muttering under his breath, which the microphones unfortunately picked up. This small gesture escalated the argument even further. Owens caught Champion's dismissive mutter and exploded, calling him disrespectful and accusing him of deliberately undermining the discussion. Champion fired back that Owens was overreacting and misrepresenting his comments. The exchange grew so loud that producers reportedly considered cutting to a commercial early, but the cameras continued rolling. Viewers could feel the raw tension, unlike anything the polished morning show had ever aired before. By this point, Owens' face was flushed, and his words came rapid-fire, barely leaving space for Champion to respond. He accused his opponent of hiding behind rhetoric and dodging accountability. Champion responded with calm but sharp precision, pointing out inconsistencies in Owens' statements. This contrast between fiery delivery and measured rebuttal made the clash even more striking, giving audiences a rare look at two completely different debating styles colliding live. The argument began spilling beyond the original issue into their personal reputations. Owens accused Champion of being part of a system that suppressed alternative voices, while Champion countered that Owens thrived on sensationalism and anger rather than solutions. Each man seemed more interested in exposing the other's flaws than solving the topic at hand. The audience in the studio sat in stunned silence, uncertain whether they were witnessing television history or an impending meltdown. Owens' frustration reached another peak when he stood halfway out of his chair, leaning across the table as if daring Champion to back down. Security staff near the stage took cautious steps forward, unsure if they might need to intervene. Champion remained seated but crossed his arms defiantly, refusing to yield ground. The anchors could be seen whispering urgently, likely receiving frantic instructions from producers in their earpieces. The eruption became the defining moment when Owens shouted that Champion represented everything wrong with today's media. His words were so sharp they seemed to cut through the air, and his voice carried a weight that made even his critics take notice. Champion, however, responded with a cold laugh, dismissing the outburst as nothing more than theatrics. That dismissive reaction only made Owens more enraged, creating an atmosphere thick with hostility. As the shouting continued, viewers at home began recording clips and posting them online. Hashtags related to the clash began trending within minutes, showing how quickly the altercation resonated with the public. Some viewers sided with Owens, praising his passion and refusal to back down, while others criticized his lack of professionalism and explosive temper. The debate was no longer just on television, it had spilled across digital platforms. The anchors finally managed to cut to a brief commercial, but even during the break, tensions were obvious. Owens paced across the set, gesturing angrily while speaking to staff members. Champion remained seated, shaking his head as if amused by the entire spectacle. Crew members whispered anxiously, knowing the cameras would soon be back on, and the nation was waiting to see how the chaos would continue. When the show returned from the commercial break, the tension had not cooled. Owens, still visibly upset, immediately launched into a defense of his earlier statements, insisting he had every right to express himself without being mocked. His voice was steadier than before, but the sharpness remained. Champion smirked again, provoking the audience's nervous laughter. The anchors attempted to smooth over the situation, but it was clear the storm had only paused, not ended. Champion leaned forward now, calmly but firmly restating his points, this time with added evidence and citations. He accused Owens of cherry-picking facts and misleading the audience. Owens, interrupting repeatedly, dismissed those claims as irrelevant distractions. The verbal tug-of-war was relentless, with each man determined to have the final word. Producers knew they had struck viral television, though at the cost of professionalism and order. Owens' frustration boiled over once again when Champion accused him of being irresponsible. Slamming his hand on the desk a second time, Owens declared that he was speaking for millions of people who felt ignored. His dramatic display electrified some viewers, who applauded his conviction online, while others criticized the spectacle as an embarrassing meltdown. The polarized reactions reflected how the argument tapped into deeper cultural divides. The anchors tried to reframe the discussion by asking a softer question, but Owens ignored it, returning directly to Champion. "You don't listen," he accused, his finger pointing directly across the table. Champion shot back that Owens was incapable of handling disagreement without hostility. The exchange sounded less like a debate and more like a personal grudge playing out live, giving the broadcaster an almost theatrical intensity. Champion finally raised his own voice, meeting Owens' energy for the first time. He declared that Owens' approach was toxic, and that television should be a space for dialogue, not chaos. Owens snapped, calling this statement hypocritical, given that Champion had spent the segment mocking and dismissing him. The anchors were visibly overwhelmed, unsure whether to intervene or simply let the confrontation burn itself out. By this point, the live audience had split in their reactions. Some clapped and cheered for Owens' fiery passion, while others booed, favoring Champion's measured points. The studio felt less like a morning show set and more like a political rally with two rival factions shouting from opposite sides. The show's staff struggled to maintain composure as the energy in the room grew heavier and more unpredictable with every passing moment. Owens, sensing the division in the audience, leaned into it, declaring that the reaction proved his point about the nation being split. Champion countered that Owens was deliberately feeding into that division for personal gain. The back and forth was less about facts now and more about philosophy, with both men turning the conversation into a battle over what role media should play in society. The ideological clash heightened the drama even further. Owens began pacing as he spoke, abandoning his seat and addressing the camera directly. His words came like a rallying speech, intense and unfiltered. Producers signaled frantically for him to return to his chair, but Owens ignored them, continuing to push his message with raw conviction. Champion remained seated, shaking his head, which only amplified the contrast between the two men's approaches to the heated debate. Champion, finally seizing a moment of calm, accused Owens of creating a spectacle to boost his personal brand rather than contribute meaningfully to the conversation. Owens spun around quickly, glaring at him, and shouted that he didn't need a brand, he needed the truth to be heard. This declaration drew loud reactions from the studio audience, leaving the anchors once again silenced by the sheer force of the exchange. The argument grew even more personal when Owens accused Champion of looking down on the very people he claimed to represent. Champion responded with a cutting remark about Owens' credibility, sparking audible gasps from the audience. Owens' expression darkened as he shot back, declaring that credibility should come from honesty, not elitism. The clash had transformed from a debate over ideas into an open battle of character. At this point, the anchors made a desperate attempt to regain control, reminding both men that the segment was intended for a national audience expecting respectful conversation. Owens cut them off mid-sentence, insisting the viewers wanted honesty, not politeness. Champion interjected that honesty did not excuse shouting and hostility. The argument had come full circle, returning to the tension between passion and professionalism. Owens, refusing to tone down his delivery, grew louder still, his voice reverberating across the studio. He declared that he would rather be loud and truthful than quiet and complicit. Champion responded with a calm but piercing line about the danger of mistaking volume for substance. The sharp contrast in their styles fascinated audiences, who debated online about which approach was more effective. Social media exploded with clips and commentary, turning the Good Morning America clash into an overnight sensation. Hashtags trended across multiple platforms, with memes and edited clips circulating widely. Some users praised Owens as a truth-teller unwilling to bow to polished media decorum, while others mocked his outbursts as unprofessional. Champion, meanwhile, gained both critics and defenders for his more restrained but cutting style. As the segment finally wound down, the anchors hurriedly thanked both guests and shifted to the next part of the show. Owens remained visibly tense, muttering to himself as staff members guided him off stage. Champion, in contrast, smiled coolly as though satisfied with the outcome. The cameras moved on, but the moment lingered with viewers who knew they had just witnessed one of the most dramatic live television arguments in recent memory. In the aftermath, news outlets replayed the clips endlessly, dissecting every gesture and word. Analysts debated whether Owens had damaged his reputation or solidified his status as a fiery truth-teller. Champion was praised by some for keeping composure, though others accused him of being dismissive and condescending. The explosive clash became a defining cultural moment, illustrating how deeply divided discussions had become and how live television could no longer contain the raw energy of two strong personalities colliding.